Hello and welcome to the Authentic Alliance podcast. This is a place for authentic conversation to occur. I am your host, Anthony Granger, and if you would want to know a little bit more about me and the services that I provide, things like coaching, an online men's group, and much more, please go over to my Instagram, which is Anthony Granger, or head over to my website, which is anthonygranger.com. Today I've got Luke Jackson on the podcast. He's a friend of mine from Sunderland. Luke, the reason why I wanted to get you on the podcast, honestly, is because you secretly inspired me for years. You know, like we've just been talking about there, about people supporting you in the shadows. I was one of them people. And you inspired me in a very fundamental way of like how you like tapped into your authenticity. You went down the unconventional route, you know, especially where we come from in Sunderland. And you know, there's not a lot of people who, you know, decide to go off and down their own little path and their own unconventional route and just, you know, I know it's cliche, but like find themselves and explore new experiences in life. And you were one of the, if not the person who inspired me, you know, to tap into my own authenticity, to really go down my own path and stop going against, and start going against the grain and stop going with the crowd and try to find out what I like and what life I want to lead. So I just wanted to mention that. Just that's the reason why I wanted to get you on, because I find you just a super interesting person already, and I don't really know much about you. And for years, I've always thought I'd love to just like, you know, get to know him. I'd love to pick your brain. I'd love to know what goes on behind the scenes with you. So I would like you to start off with just talking about like maybe if you're comfortable talking about like the old Luke. Do you know the Luke when you grew up and in Sunderland? And then kind of will transition into like, you know, the period where things started to change for you and you started to go down your own path.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like I say, obviously with anybody, it's a long story, but so basically, you know, I was born in London. My mother was from London. My dad was from the north of England. He went down when he was younger to work. Then they had me and my little sister and decided to move back up the north, obviously because it's a lot cheaper. So I moved back up the north, but kind of like always throughout my childhood, just kind of was getting bullied a lot, struggled, was always moving schools. Obviously came up from the south of the north, used to have a southern accent, so that made me stand out like a sore thumb back in the day, even though I've got the strongest northern accent ever. Yeah, and then obviously a few years into my life, I lost my mum when I was quite young. So that was obviously like, I actually think that for me was the pivotal moment of my spiritual journey, even though it took me a long, long time to realize that was the thing that made me very different and see things very differently, was losing my mum at a young age, which automatically just kind of threw me into, I guess, like shut down. So when I was about 8, I just kind of shut down emotionally. And then through the death of my mum, both me and my sister, like we just kind of like developed, you know, like eating disorders. So I put on a lot of weight. So as a young kind of 8-year-old, 10-year-old in their primary school, I was the little fat kid. Do you know what I mean? I didn't really have any friends because I was always moving schools and then, man, for a long time, I just kind of put up with that. And for a long time, I just kind of put up getting bullied and then I remember being in secondary school and kind of hit year 9 and I kind of grew a little bit. I kind of got tall and my shoulders broadened out and I just remember it's so mad there because like my roots in music always come from like obviously dance music. And I remember like every night before I go to sleep, I'd put like dance music on trance and I just have these visions. And in the visions, I'd be always in the schoolyard and I'd be getting bullied by everyone. Like, you know what I mean? And in the first few days of having these like visions every night, like just listening to trance music, like not visions, but like almost like just dreams essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Every night I'd get a little bit more courage. And then by the 4th or 5th night, I'd start like speaking back and just like standing back in my power and saying like, actually, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to take this anymore. And then I'd still be getting taken and beaten, but my spirit was coming back each night. It was mad. It's such a crazy experience when I look back at it now. I didn't realize this at the time, but it just like kept happening. Like every single night, my dream, my spirit would come back a little bit more, and I'd stand up and I'd fight. And then by the end of maybe like 2 weeks of having these, I remember essentially being bullied by them all, standing up, and then them all come and hit me, and I'm just like hitting them, and they're all falling down, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah, like I can do this. So anyway, I went into school, and the guys that were bullying me at the time, like they tried to bully me, and I just stood up. Do you know what I mean? Like in real this time or in real life, and like I built up the courage, and I stepped up, and I was like, all right, I'll fight you tonight. And like nobody expected it, and just in that one moment, I literally took back my whole life changed, because I went from being the kid that got bullied and not really seeing anything to the kid that stood up. And then, you know, like I just kept winning my fights, but I just truly believe it was because I was just fighting from this place of like, from light, do you know what I mean? Like from this place of like, actually I won't be bullied. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't fighting from a place of ego. I'm getting
goosebumps here. Like it's, yeah, I'm actually like getting like, yeah, no, it's cool, man. And just honestly, before you keep going on, just thank you for your authentic, like your vulnerability as well, man. You know, and authenticity. Like, thank you for sharing this. But yeah, keep going with the story there. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, thank you for obviously opening up the space for me to share with you. It's I think like it's a really important. It's when you look back at your life, you can put it all together and kind of build a picture of why you are the way you are. Or why you act certain things the way you do. And yeah, so I kind of went through this phase of then stepping up and becoming quite popular and becoming, you know, like in schools we have this crazy thing of like the hardest in the year, blah 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 blah. I'm sure every school has that. And yeah, like I moved to pretty much to the top of that within the space of just a couple of weeks, and I was like, I was obviously just overwhelmed by how many people wanted to be my friend. All the girls wanted me, and I was just like, whoa, what's going on? Like, it's crazy. And then didn't obviously take long before that just got to my head.
Yeah. And
then, you know, like in that year 9, year 10, start drinking alcohol and just going through a load of crazy stuff. But yeah, I went through a pretty crazy patch in my life for like from the age of about 15 to 17, 18, where I was just fighting a lot, drinking a lot. Just massively went down a bad path with a lot of like not really nice people there. And then I guess essentially to keep the story short, boxing was kind of like another massive step in my journey of like learning how to channel the anger. Obviously I had all of this anger built inside of years of just being bullied and losing my mom and not getting the love from the feminine. And so, do you know what I mean? It was just years and years of building up. Then I just popped for a few years, and it took me nearly losing my life to a knife and watching my friend like get stabbed up, and to like really switch me on to be like, wow, actually this is not the life that I want. Do you know what I mean? Like in my heart, I'm a good person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. There's just a few things that I want to touch on, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
First of all, like, yeah, so like from a young age, you were already ingrained into kind of the visualization manifestation thing. Like that's powerful, you know, from such a young age, you were visualizing going into school, you were visualizing, you know what I mean? And as we get older, I mean, look, you'll probably be well aware of this, you know, how powerful visualization is, how powerful manifestation is, how powerful that is sitting with the mind. And, you know, getting a clear picture of what you want, and like, you know, you were doing it, and like how powerful that was for you to visualize that going to school, and then your life just changed instantly overnight, you know. And you wouldn't have had that courage if you didn't sit with it every night, listen to music, and actually visualize what you're going to go through, and find the courage in the actual visualization before you've actually done the thing in itself, which is just fucking huge, you know. Also, I know that what else was it? Yeah, obviously when I was growing up, obviously we know we're kind of around the same age, and it's funny because I knew your reputation of that latter year, you know, the latter years, year 9, year 10, year 11, Luke, you know, the guy who like, watch out for Luke Jackson in the town, he might, you know, give you a good hiding, or he might give you a crack, you know what I mean? Don't get in the way of Luke. And that's why I found your story so interesting, because when I was growing up, it was like, you know, this like, Luke, you don't want to get in his way, you don't want to see him on his bad side. And then now I look at you like this beautiful, you know, spiritual, strong-willed, like, you know, just absolutely beautiful. Like, and like I said, I don't really know you fully yet, but even just what of the vibe you put out, the vibration, I just know you're a beautiful human being. So that's what I find so interesting about your story, just the contrast between, you know, the dark growing up, the ego coming over, and then you finding the light and finding your own path and finding your own way. It's just so fucking inspirational, man, honestly. So yeah, let's start with that. Obviously, where it changed there, you said that your friend got stabbed up and you had a had a dark time there. Can we start with that?
Yeah, man. I mean, I was kicked out of the house at the time, so like I'd lost my connection to my dad. And to be honest, like my dad's an amazing man, and like I think I am who I am also today. And I wasn't able to come out of that because I had such a strong father in my life. Even though I didn't have the mother figure, I had such a strong father. But you know, when I was 15 and I was getting ahead of myself, and you know, I was a big lad at 15. I was like 17 stone. I was massive there. About 50 kilo heavier than I am now. And yeah, I just remember me and my dad falling out, and kind of left the house, and then moved in, you know, again, and was just hanging around with with people that didn't really have my interest in. And like I say, I think it was boxing. When I had this experience with the knife and watching my friend get stabbed, I just kind of, after that, I just realized that I was gonna get in too deep. And I was probably already in too deep, and that I was lucky enough to have escaped that, like by literally centimeters. And that was horrible time because I was really paranoid to the point where I couldn't walk down the street without thinking that, you know what I mean? So I kind of started boxing again and moved back in the house with my dad. And my dad was like, me, my dad, and Sean Casey was like a really, really amazing boxing coach in Sunderland. They set up a gym there, and I just kind of went back to that, and then started to channel all of the anger that I had through, again, like I said, everything that had happened into boxing. And I was going to the gym, you know what I mean? I was getting out all of that like testosterone, all of that anger, and I just felt so amazing after it. And I think also, obviously, a massive part of my awakening was definitely moving away from like the alcohol and more to like the psychedelics and to the cannabis. Cannabis played a massive, massive part in my evolution there. Because when I started smoking cannabis, but when I started doing it in the right setting, in my house, watching podcasts, watching documentaries, exploring music, exploring cultures, you know what I mean? That for me just opened me up to this world. I never even wanted to travel. I never even had the idea of traveling until I was like maybe 19. And then
it's funny because, just to touch on that a little bit, like I obviously coach people now, and I obviously smoke weed, and it's legal here in Canada, but I say like weed is a psychedelic. Like I only smoke it like maybe twice a week, but I have the intention of like not unconsciously smoking weed. I meditate, I journal, I watch some like really you know, like inspirational shit, and like I try to take in the right amount of knowledge and wisdom, and watch like these YouTube videos and stuff, and I have the intention to use weed for its purpose, because I feel like it gets wasted in society. It's so powerful as a psychedelic. But yeah, I want to touch on psychedelics because I know that was a big part of your journey, you know, and I want to just talk a little bit about the weed and your first psychedelic experience, and the whole how it all manifested, I guess.
Yeah. It started off with weed. Essentially, me, my friend Liam, who you know, I think you know Liam Damsel there, we would just basically, he'd always come around, and he liked to smoke, and I was kind of, I mean, I was a doorman for a few years, from the age of 18 to 21. I was a doorman, so most of my weekends were spent not doing things. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't really drinking at that time, so to speak, but I was definitely still enjoying a fight now and again. But it just started off with me and Liam really smoking weed, listening to music. Me and some of my other friends like Carl, Stefan, Johnny, Liam. A few of us were just smoke, watch some amazing documentaries, talk about life, and I was just like, wow, this is so much cooler than just going out and getting pissed up. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm learning something every time we come around and spend this time together. I feel like we're learning something. And then I just became really curious about everything there, because I feel like, obviously, since the death of my mum, I didn't really follow the path of the Christians or Christianity, so to speak. It never really made sense to me. So I couldn't find my connection to her through that, but I was always searching for something back to some kind of answer of like, will I meet her again? Do you know what I mean? Will I ever see that or feel that energy again? And something inside my heart has always known that I will. So, But I didn't talk about this for, well, we're there, I guess, until the 21, until I started smoking, taking psychedelics, and then realizing like that there was something spiritual, and there was something really connected about our lives. And I just kept having all of these mad experiences, one after other, sometimes with psychedelics, mostly with psychedelics, but sometimes not at all. Do you know what I mean? Just through exercise or just epiphanies there, having lots of epiphanies, loads of light bulb switch moments. I'd go to a Herrington Company Park every night and I'd like start meditating and then reaching the amazing places through that and just kind of questioning everything. And then I think when I first took mushrooms, that was just kind of, for me, that was like, I'm a pretty sensitive person there, so that just blew my whole reality. My first time. I took too many, and I kind of think that I needed to do that though, because that was like literally, I remember taking them. I'm not talking about the experience because it's such a long story and it's very cryptic and fragmented. It was a long time ago, but I just remember having the last part of the trip. I was lying on my bed and I'm in my room, and it felt really strange to be in a room because I'd been outside before, and I was in these boxes, like in this box, and my thoughts were all starting to loop around, and I started to feel like my whole body was shutting down there. I started to feel like my feet, my toes shutting down, my legs, and I was really panicking. And I was sitting with a few friends, and I was like, inside my head, I was screaming to them like, call me an ambulance, somebody, something's bad happening. But I didn't have the courage to speak out. Like I didn't want to ruin their vibe by how much terror I was feeling. So I just kind of lay there and was just trying to fight the feeling of my body shutting down. And it'd be like 30 seconds of absolute terror and like also horrible images and just absolute terror. And then it switched and the terror turned to pure joy and pure bliss. And my body was full of electric, and my body was tingling and dancing, and I could see the roots, my roots, like connected to the roots of everything, literally everything, everyone, every single cell. My roots were connected to it, and I felt total peace. And then I switched again. It just kept switching, and I did it maybe 5 or 6 times, and I'd be like, oh, whoa, I'm dying again, I'm dying, and literally feel myself dying. But by the last time, the last round of that switch, I remember when I felt like I was dying, I just laughed at myself and I was like, I'm not dying. And if I am dying, I just died, and look at how much beauty I felt. So like in that moment, I just kind of accepted like, all right, if I'm dying, I accept that because I know I'm going somewhere beautiful. And instantly came out of the trip and was just like, looked at my friends like, wow, that was surreal experience. And then I remember just going to sleep, waking up the day after. And I live on the edge of Sunderland, so we got all the cornfields. And I just walked out of the cornfields and I could see all of the field blowing in the wind as one big breath. And I just felt ultimate peace. Like I hadn't felt that peace since before my mom. Do you know what I mean? Like just this ultimate peace that I knew I was connected to everything. And that feeling will never leave me. Sometimes I lose it. I mean, do you know what I mean? It's a constant battle life. And do you know what I mean? Trying to get back to that place, it can be hard sometimes, especially when we try and force it, especially because you know it's real, you know that it's tangible, you know you can be in that peaceful place. So when you go back into the turmoil inside of yourself or you're having struggles, that's the place that you crave for.
Yeah, Luke, honestly, that's fucking beautiful. Like that was a fucking beautiful description of that experience. Honestly, like, and I'm not even joking, like it's so similar to my experience as well. So that's why I'm just getting so much emotion now, because it's just a surreal experience of like, it's like finding something that nobody else knows, but you know that other people know about it, but they haven't realized it yet. And it's just this weird experience. And I want to talk about like after that experience, because for me, when this happened, like my experience happened, like a similar experience happened in 2016. And you know, I had the whole ego death situation and just total obliteration of everything that I thought that I knew about myself and life. Overnight, everything just switched, and I just didn't know what the fuck was going on. Like I said, I even done a similar where like the next day I walked out into the backfield and the sun coming through the trees, I was just like crying how beautiful it was, and
It's
feeling disconnected. But at that time, I didn't know what it was, and I had to then go and find out what it was, and I had to do me research, and I found a whole new realm of spirituality. Like, I found this whole chest of like people out there and information and in love, and just wow, it just blew me mind. But I want to talk about how you integrated that into your life after the fact. So like for me, I hid away from that. I didn't show anybody that side of me for a long time because it was so different. And every time I tried to bring up a conversation about, my spiritual experience or how I was feeling, it was always met with like, you're crazy, or what the fuck you talking about?
Of course.
I hid that side of me for, maybe two years. It isn't only till the last year or two where I've had the courage to like, show up as who I want to be and talk about the things that I want to talk about. So I just wanted you to touch on like how you dealt with like, having that experience and having all these experiences, then finally finding this thing and feeling connected with the universe again. And, how did you navigate all that coming out of that experience?
Well, it was I think I'm pretty lucky that obviously my dad is obviously, like I say, he's not just an amazing man, he's very open-minded. Like in the front room, we have a library, it's got the Quran, the Bible, like always taught me to look at everything. And to stay neutral in a sense, but like to look and see that there's truth in everything, but not one ultimate thing is the truth. That's kind of how I live my life. And I remember just kind of like was starting to have a smoke with my dad, and me and my dad started opening up a lot. And so I knew that he was open to it anyways. So I remember about a week after having this amazing experience, he walks in my room and he's like, I think it's time you read this book. And he passes me, I don't know if you've read it, The Celestine Prophecy.
No, I've never read it.
It's an incredible book. And like this book for me at that time was the Bible. It's like, because once I read this book, everything around me started to happen the same way it happened in the book. It's so, and like, I just realized that like I just kind of, I don't really know how to explain it. It just, everything changed. I think after that, I was in full power of my life again. And I knew that nothing would really stop me from doing what I wanted to do. And I had friends that were supportive of me, and like, so I think I didn't necessarily hide from it. I reached out for it. I just went for it, and I was like, nah, this is an answer to something I've been searching for again since a long time. Do you know what I mean? And I do genuinely believe as kids we're all connected. I do believe that. Do you know what I mean? I think we're so connected to the spiritual world, and then at some point we lose that, and we just got to kind of re-find it. And some people find it through psychedelics, some people through meditation, some people through. There's so many different catalysts that can open the door.
So let's talk about that, because that's something I'm kind of like learning, especially in this, like in the last few, maybe it's the last year. So I would feel spiritually connected, Luke. I'd feel super spiritually connected, and everything would be making sense. I'd be reading stuff, and everything was just channeling, and I would be feeling so like loved, and I'd be showing love to other people, and then that might last for like 2, 3, 4 months, and then something might happen and I switch, and then I don't know if it's the ego coming back in, but then I lose that. I used to feel disconnected, and I used to be like shitting myself, like, oh, have I lost it? Have I lost that feeling? And I used to always try and get back to feeling connected again. I used to try my hardest. I used to do psychedelics and try and meditate when I didn't want to, try and read all these books when I didn't want to, try my hardest to get back, and I would never be able to get back, but I would never be able to get back in an authentic way.
Forcing
it, but now I'm coming in and like everything's just a wave, and like the times that I feel disconnected are just times that I feel disconnected, and I'm okay with that, and I don't try and cling back. But then the funny thing is, like, now I'm just accepting that sometimes I feel disconnected, sometimes I feel connected. The times of disconnect is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, you see? So like when I used to try so hard to get back to that place, it's like I was just kind of forcing myself to be disconnected by trying to get back there. But now of just accepting the flow and the polarity and the wave of life, I'm just kind of just like so at ease at the minute. And like I said, I feel disconnected, and some days I do, some days I don't, and it's all just part of the experience.
Sure.
How do you deal with that? Do you have times? Because
honestly, I know that my life looks like I live the best wildest life on social media, but trust me, like, do you know what I mean? I have my down times, man. And like I've been obviously traveling pretty much for the last 7 years, which has been amazing. But like that lifestyle also comes at a cost. comes at a cost of your health for sure. Do you know what I mean? And I've been dealing with like quite not a lot of health problems the last few years, but a bad back. Do you know what I mean? Some things that have really like kind of limited me to be that strong young man that I used to be.
Yeah.
It's been not even that, just emotionally, I think, and also with what is happening in the world and the changes that we're going through. I would say it's hard not to get down there. Like, I think I'm a person that I've always been affected quite deeply by the troubles of the world. Hence why I write a lot of poetry or music, like, and try to bring that to light, because I'd always be affected by it so deeply, and I'd feel tremendous sadness. And now I'm at a point in my life where I can express sadness without feeling ashamed or without feeling like it doesn't make me manly or something, because I know who I am. Do you know what I mean? And I know what I've been through, and I know that actually expressing myself in that way. And I've been doing brother circles the last few years, and it's been a massive journey that I think I've just found that talking about things.
Yeah. And it's
being able to express it. As a man, you know yourself, mate. As a man that grew up in Sunderland, you can't tell your friends that stuff back home about and if friends told you, we'd rip the piss out of them, and that's just how it is because it's normalised. But actually, I mean, I look around me, mate, and I just see angry men everywhere and sad men because they can't express themselves, and men killing themselves a lot. A lot of men are in jail. Do you know what I mean? And it's all boils down to not being able to express the sadness, which then comes out as anger, because if you can't express yourself through sadness, look at a child. A child cries, it gets sad. If it doesn't feel like it's being heard or seen in that sadness, they get angry before tantrum.
Especially a man as well. You know, anger is the only expression that a man is accepted to express. You know, it's the only emotion that we're allowed to express, especially coming from, you know, Sunderland or where, like, you know, the North East of England. It's a very, I would say, a heavy masculine environment. And like, I've been doing men's group. You know, I've been going to men's group for the past about a year now here in Canada, you know, every week on a Wednesday, and it's just been fucking absolutely pinnacle in my growth. Honestly, the person I was a year ago to the person I am today is just blows my fucking mind. And like even I can see it, and sometimes it's hard to see the change in yourself, but even I can feel it, you know, just really tapping into my authentic self, being able to express myself the way I want to express myself, you know, having that strong masculine presence around us where it's not all egotistical and surface. You know, we get real life shit. We talk about real life shit. We get into the nitty gritty. We support each other like we're meant to support each other. We're a fucking tribe, you know, and just having that around us and experiencing that it's okay to show emotion. It's okay, you know, to let your guard down and show a bit of vulnerability, because there's strength in that. There's courage in that.
Oh, man,
you know, and like less things affect me now, you know, like I don't feel like I need to pretend anymore. It's like, I don't need to, you know. I found the power in just being able to be vulnerable, and it just gives you so much ease in life, you know. I just feel at ease all the time now.
I mean, definitely, Like if you feel like you can reach out or just talk to somebody and let it out, that in itself, just telling somebody something that is internal. If you externalize it, it's like letting steam out of a pressure cooker, literally. Do you know what I mean? It's like it just lets something out.
100%, brother. And like I said, I mean, and I feel like it's definitely something that I also want to like facilitate myself as well, you know, in the future, because I've seen the power in it. And you just touched on that. You've been going to brother circles there as well.
Yeah, and I've facilitated some, and it's really powerful. Yeah, and I think the beautiful thing about this is that you don't really need to learn a lot to facilitate a brother circle. You just have to be able to hold the space and open up a space that people can talk comfortably in. Yeah. So I think the more of us that are doing it and the more of us that actually start running the circles, I think it's going to be really helpful, because we don't have brotherhood these days. Do you know what I mean? And like, I think women in that aspect, they have each other and they have friends that they can like express themselves to. But brothers, we don't have that. We don't trust each other. Men don't trust each other.
No. And it's acceptable for the feminine energy to open up to each other. You know, it's acceptable.
Yeah. Like it's just normal, but it's normal. For men, it isn't normal. Even though in the last few years it has becoming more and more of a thing. Yeah. Which I think is definitely necessary. Yeah, because like I say, I just think that men are struggling a lot internally that we're not seeing, and
And with social media as well, it's highlighted, you know, you see it all the time, and it's like, and it really affects me, you know, it really affects me how like people are just suffering, especially men are suffering in silence. And all it is like letting go of the, like, I don't know, letting go of that, like taking off that mask, you know, just take off that mask and just be vulnerable for 1 second, and you'll be able to, like you said, just let off that steam, just let off that little bit of, just release that little bit of pressure, you know. That's all we need to do, because the pressure builds up, and we kind of show our true selves to each
I
other.
think if you know, if you're in a group of men and you open up and you talk, you might open yourself up to that judgment or criticism. But I think on a deeper level, you'll have planted a seed inside of them to know that it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
Even if it takes years for that seed to flower, you've planted that just by you opening up and being vulnerable, even though you know that it might, you know what I mean, blah, 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 blah. You know that you're planting seeds to show other men that it's all right. Yeah. It's all right to be vulnerable. You know what I mean? It's all right to speak. It's all right because it is. But I think it's also all right to be alpha, and I think it's also all right to be empowered. You know what I mean? I think we need to be everything. I think at the end of the day, emotions, we all feel them and we all experience them, and they are like waves. They come and go. And I think it's key and it's vital for spiritual growth to feel every emotion.
Yeah.
And to learn, how does that emotion serve me? How does that emotion not serve me? Do you know what I mean? And finding the right balance with your emotions, because, you know, like all of my music, everything that I create and put so much passion into, it comes from a lot of sadness and anger. You know what I mean, which can be looked at as a very bad negative energy, but actually I think it can be the most beautiful energy when you transform it into a way that is accessible for others.
Because it obviously, you know, it opens up a channel in them as well, you know, through your music. You can open up a little, you know, it opens up something in them. I mean, that's what music does, isn't it? It unlocks it unlocks something in you that you feel that you can resonate with the person who's actually, you know, expressing the music in itself. So let's talk about traveling a little bit. So like, obviously I know that you've been traveling for, you know, 7 years. I just want to talk about a little bit about traveling, like where, just like brush over where you've been, and like, you know, any of your favorite places, any of the most pinnacle places you've been. I know you've been to like, is it Rainbow Gathering or Rainbow
Gatherings?
Rainbow Gathering and stuff like that. Like that's just blows my mind, you know. But yeah,
I mean that's another world that in itself.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you've tapped into them worlds though, and that's what I find so just amazing about it. You know, it's so mind blowing to me that you've been to them places. It feels like to me like you've been at the edge of the earth, but in like in an experience sense.
You
know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously after when I was in Sunderland, I flew to Ibiza and kind of went there on a like obviously everybody was, you know what it's like in Ibiza, but the first night I took a pill and it just sent me west. And like I just remember the day after waking up and being like, I've got 11 days on this island. I don't really want to go out party every night because I'm just like I'm just pretty susceptible. Like I can handle ganja lots, but anything else, I just little tiny bits. And so I just kind of decided on that night, I was like, I'm just gonna explore the island of Ibiza. And every day I would just walk a different direction along the coast, and this is when I first started meeting hippies or people living in caves, and I was like, what the fuck, like this people do this, like nah. Do you know what I mean? Like the first time, boy from Sunderland, do you know what I mean, like walking into these caves, like what the fuck, this is awesome. And then I kind of had the most amazing 10 days in Ibiza. Like that was also a massive pinnacle of like the synchronicities that I experienced on that island, and just completely going into the unknown by myself and trusting. And then where I ended up and all of the people and places that I found there, I was just like, wow. Again, getting back to this book, I was like, this book's so true here. Like I can manifest anything, do you know what I mean? And like I'm there, just it was happening right before my eyes. And then after that, I kind of decided I'd fly to Southeast Asia. So I flew out to Southeast Asia, Thailand, traveled around Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, which was just crazy and absolutely epic at the same time. For the first few months, I was just on top buzz. You know what I mean? Nothing was bringing me down. Every day was a big party, and it was just like a big celebration of life. It was amazing. But then when I was in Laos, I again, cutting another long story short, but I got robbed, and didn't have any money. So that was quite a hard time. I went from just like being in this incredible blissfulness to then being in this position of like in a company that I couldn't get my bank card sent to. Didn't know what to do without any money, and a broken motorbike. I didn't have a second gear in Laos, and a very mountainous country, and I just kind of went through this dark patch there. Then that was kind of the first dark patch I went through after my spiritual awakening, actually. And it was really interesting to go from this super high of like 9 months of just watching life just turn into the most magical journey for me, to then being like hit with like, whoa, all right, like I'm in a third world country with no money, nobody around me who I know, like, what am I going to do? And it was like really in that time that I feel like I actually just became a man, to be honest. Like I was like an initiation from it. After that, I kind of decided that I needed to get back to like some kind of Western world or Western culture, because as much as I love the Southeast Asia culture, it's so different.
Yeah.
And it was crazy at some points and then so peaceful at other times. You know what I mean? Obviously, it has all of those things. But I flew out to Australia and spent my first few weeks in Sydney, which was a massive culture shock. Manly Beach, coming from Southeast Asia, full of hippies and full of these amazing traveling souls, to then being again back in this place where everybody was just like, nobody smiled at me when I walked past them. I felt like everybody was judging me because I had my backpack on, and it was interesting there. And then I was just like, oh my God, like what have I done there? And my first few weeks in Australia, even though it was beautiful, like I was going places and seeing how beautiful and the beautiful beaches, and I just kind of after that I kind of felt like I was going to come home. And then I remember one night I was just starting to feel like again really disconnected. I was like, I don't know what to do. Do I go back home? Do I go back to Southeast Asia? Like I want to be with travelers again. I want to be back on the flow of life. I was staying with my godmother at the time, which she was my mum's best friend, which was beautiful. So that was like kind of like a healing process for me to be living with my mum's childhood best friend. But also the actual surrounding of the area just wasn't me. So I was struggling. And then also bringing up all of this stuff about my mum, I was just like, again, kind of going into this place. And then I just wrote this poem. I remember writing this poem, and I finished the last line. The last line is freedom. And I turned around and opened up Facebook, and I just saw like this poetry competition flash up on my screen, on my Facebook.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, interesting. I was in Australia, and I was like, all right, where's Bellingen? I typed in Bellingen, which is this beautiful little town in Australia. It's full of amazing people. It's very alternative. And I was like, all right, that's 6 hours away, which is nothing for Australia.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I was like, all right, I can do that. So I messaged the person, I posted the post, and I just sent him a message, and I said, if I come up to Bellingen, can you guarantee me a spot? Because it's a long way. And he sent me a message back saying, not only will I guarantee you a spot, I'll give you a sofa to sleep on. So I was like, oh, sweet. So next thing I jumped on the bus to Bellingen, and I did the poetry competition, and I won the People's Choice. And like after that, the community just took me in and let me go into schools, speak to the kids, took me to an Aboriginal camp. It was crazy. Yeah, like they let me go into school and talk about psychedelics. The story that I'm telling you right now, they literally asked me to go into the school and teach like 17-year-old kids. I can't remember what class, maybe it was a psychology class, but they asked me to like just share my life experience with this class, which I thought was wow, incredible. Yeah, such an honor. And then ended up at an Aboriginal camp, and just from that moment of going from Sydney to Bellingen, that's when I really became immersed in this spiritual community. Because I was living in northern New South Wales, Byron Bay area, around Mount Warning. It's just high energy.
It's just high energy, high spiritual energy.
So that was just some mad time. And then, I mean, I've been back to Australia 3 times, spent a year in New Zealand. But the last few years, I've really been there exploring Britain, and I'm just falling more and more in love with this island the more time I spend here. And as much as I love to travel and see new places, I love my connection to this land, and I feel like I've really found those roots that I was talking about back here. But it took me to go to all of these amazing countries to realise that.
Luke, I'm just gonna so yeah, I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, so you're back to England. So yeah, that's something that I'm kind of playing with at the minute, because obviously I've been away from home for a while now, and like I feel like I was always like running away from England in a sense. You know, I'm running away from my past. I'm running away from the challenge of like being who I want to be, but back home. But more and more lately, honestly, the past year, more and more, like I'm ready to come home. Like I'm ready to explore England. Like when I look, like, because I've been away from it for so long, I look back, I'm like, fuck, you know, there's beauty there. There's so much history. There's so much fucking culture that I was totally oblivious of when I was once living there.
Yeah, me too.
It was crazy. And honestly, Luke, there's so many questions I want to ask you about your travels and like there's the whole journey. And I know we've only got limited time, so I'm just going to try and keep this going. But honestly, in the future, I definitely want to have another conversation.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
There's so much information that I want to know.
I'd like to ask you some questions.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but honestly, we'll do it again. But what I want to talk about is because like spirituality. So when I was going traveling, I was finding this, like, you know, like spirituality or whatever you want to call it, you know, your own authenticity, whatever. And I always thought that I needed to, like, you know, grow dreadlocks and like become a hippie, you know, and like I went to Asia and I was like, oh, well, I need to, like, you know, like be with all these hippies and I need to grow dreadlocks, but I just didn't feel connected in that way. I just didn't feel like I fitted in. And I used to beat myself up and was like, well, am I truly, I mean, ego used to talk, am I truly spiritual if I don't, like, and like, I really used to get caught up in all that, you know, and it really used to affect us, you know, in the early days. It really used to affect us, especially when I left home to try and like find me tribe. I found myself being so unauthentic that I was actually like doing a detriment to myself. So I just want to talk about your spiritual practice, because I know that you have got your own little thing. I mean, you might obviously have a tribe as well, but I feel like you have a unique sense of spirituality, of how like you present yourself. And it really fits in with the culture of England, I think, you know, and like paganism. Am I right?
Yeah, that's more. I can honestly, bro, I could talk about this for hours, and it's a big subject that I'm actually really passionate about at the moment. Is again, is this like, it's the glamour of spirituality, and like anything for me, spirituality, even though for me it was beautiful to first go out and to go to all of these rainbow gatherings and to live these lives, I realized that again it was just all ego. Again, it was about my long hair, it was about how I looked, it was everything was about, and I just honestly, personally, I think spirituality as a whole is actually just it's the new religion, and it's unfortunately becoming very corrupt very fast. And it's becoming very trendy, and it's becoming accessible for the wrong reasons, even though it's good. And I think to a degree we need to go through that, like we all need to go through that process of like, whoa, what am I doing? It's like shredding layers back every time. And to be honest, bro, I've met lots of amazing souls on my travels, and I felt at parts like I was part of a tribe, but I think on an overall I'm a bit of a lone wolf.
Same.
There I am there, and obviously that's what gets me down sometimes, is because I'm like, I don't know, I feel like the same way that I wanted to break away from society because I saw the corruption in it, I also now wanted to break away from the spiritual community because I see the corruption in it, and I don't feel like I have a place to speak about it without being automatically put into a box of like, I don't know what it is. But a big subject of mine recently is definitely, I feel like I went to Southeast Asia and I went to Australia, and I learned about the Buddhist culture and I learned about the Aboriginal culture, and they're beautiful. I know there's so much beauty in every culture and every religion, but I kept reaching this point where I'd reach a point I couldn't go any further. And I was like, why can't I go any further? And then it was when I was in Australia, and all of the Australians, because they're obviously Scottish and Irish, they were more connected to our culture, British culture, than I was. And they kept telling me, like, you're a bard, you know, like you're this, and I was like, what is a bard? What is a druid? And they couldn't believe that I came from England and didn't know about these things. And people kept saying, you're a Viking, this, and like after a while it started to be like, wow, interesting there, like what's the history of my culture? And then I came back home and started visiting all of the ancient sites. And I think for me, that was when I truly found my authenticity, is when I went back to the sacred sites of Britain, and they spoke to me and showed me things that I can't even begin to describe there. And I was like, wow. And I do genuinely think as Westerners, we are so disconnected from our paganism, from our indigenous ancestors who once lived with the land. You know, like we go to the Amazon, or we go to Australia, or we go to India because we search for these indigenous cultures because they still exist there. And I think that's beautiful, but I think there reaches a point where you need to try and get back to your own indigenous connection to the land, because in Australia or certain cultures, you take the person from the land, it's like taking the spirit away. You know what I mean? The land is the spirit.
Yeah.
And for me, spirituality is not about anything glamorous. It's not even, I don't have a practice, you know what I mean? Like, and I think a practice can definitely be good. And I think, but every single person's different, and every practice serves somebody else different. So I think for me, I'm also a person that I try and often kind of advise more people not to seek so much answers in spirituality through other people, but just to get back to the elements.
Thank you. Like, this is honestly, this is everything that I've been like. So like, I was caught up in the ego spirituality. I was like trying to be spiritual all the time, meditate and do all these things. And it's like the past 2 years I've been realizing, like, for me, spirituality has just been truly authentic to who I am. That is it. And like before, like going to the gym, I used to think going to the gym was ego and it wasn't spiritual. Like I used to like fight away from it, but I always used to like want to go back to the gym. Like I really want to go back to the gym, but it's me ego, and I used to get caught in my own head. And that's what I mean. Now I'm realizing like that was all just bullshit. Like I'm just getting caught up in that like spirituality shit. And it's like, now I feel like if I'm just being authentic to myself and I'm doing things that are aligned with me, maybe that's meditating one day, maybe that's going to the gym and like doing like, that is me being spiritual to myself. And that's just me. Yeah. Like my practice and my being isn't a part of anybody else. This is just me. This is my spiritual thing, you know? This is me feeling connected in who I am. And as long as I'm connected with who I am and I keep tapped into my authentic self, that's me, quote unquote, being like spiritual in a sense, you know? I don't have to be anything else. I don't have to be walking around with crystals around my neck and meditating and projecting.
Some of the most spiritual people I've met are homeless people.
Yeah, and the power. Yeah, exactly. And like,
it's got nothing to do with how you look. And I think the people that often look the more spiritual are normally so caught up in that they've actually, unfortunately, do you know what I mean? We all know it, and I'm fully aware of myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've still got a big ego.
Yeah, of course.
It's always there. And I'm constantly having to humble myself and be in humility of like, all right, Luke, like, check yourself again. Are you really being authentic here? Are you really being authentic here? Are you really in integrity? And I think we need to do that. And not only do we need to do it, but when we see our friends or our brothers and sisters doing something that we don't think is in integrity, we should call them out on it. I think within the spiritual community, it's all about love and light and telling people how beautiful you are, which of course is beautiful. But I think after a while, I kind of was craving people to tell me what they didn't like about me, because I'm like, I want to grow.
Yeah, and that's.
I can't. Do you know what I mean? It requires a massive amount of consciousness to see when you're not acting out of a certain way.
Yeah. And that's why men's group's been good for me, because it's been like me tapping into my shadow side and then reflecting the shadow side, but also me accepting my shadow side. Like, I've got a shadow and it's fine. Like, I've got all these things that are quote unquote negative and like, I don't want to show it to the world, but now I'm showing to the world. I don't give a fuck. It's part of me. My shadow is me. Yeah. And like all the men's groups reflecting back to me everything that's wrong. And I'm like, great, this is what I want. I want to grow. So I need to, if I don't know where to heal, then I kind of grow, you know? And that's what the beautiful thing about the men's space is. And the men's group is like, I get that nice reflection and I get that humbling to a point where I know where I'm able to grow in certain areas, or where I'm able to accept myself, or where I'm able to show love. Yeah, well, I'm so buzzing like that you've talked about like spirituality isn't about, you know, looking a certain way or trying to act a certain way, but more so just trying to be authentic to you, because that's just a message that I mean, like, I'm just learning, you know, about myself. Like,
yes,
you know, and it's an ever-going process. And like I said, I've got a massive ego, you know, but it's part of me. Like, I've got an ego, and yeah, I do check myself.
I mean, I think I don't think ego is necessarily a bad thing. When I was traveling, I was like, I'm going to annihilate my ego. And after a while, I realized, well, how am I going to laugh at people?
Yeah.
How am I going to reach people? Because we all operate with ego, and I think ego can also be something good. It's just that when we let it control us.
And it's also, you can form a sense of disconnect from you and everybody else, because like when you're on this like non-ego path, spiritual path, and like you're trying to have a conversation with people, but you kind of relate, and it's like, what am I doing? Like I'm here to have a human experience, you know. Yes, I am a soul, but I'm a human. Like I don't want to dissolve my ego. I've got an ego for a reason, you know. And yes, obviously we don't want it to get inflated too high, where we get caught up in like, I don't know, like maybe it's like consumerism, or just like really down the path of just total disconnect. But still, we need the whole space for it. We need to still have it in our lives. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's such a big part of it's just, it's like when you said the shadow, like for me, I often use this as an example for myself to come back to. I remember sometimes I do yoga, and like when I do it, and if the sun's shining, I used to always do it with my like face towards the sun, and I still do, but every now and again I'll turn around and look at my shadow, and it's actually such a beautiful thing to see, because like in my shadow I just look like this being, like this masculine being of light, you know what I mean? And like there isn't any skin or textures. There's just this shape of me. Yeah, it's my shadow, and I remember looking at it once and being like, wow, you're always with me. Yeah. And the stronger the light is, the more I can see my shadow.
Wow, that is a beautiful analogy.
Honestly, bro. And
I thought about that before. The stronger the light, the bigger the shadow. That's fucking unreal.
The bigger the shadow, yeah, the darker the shadow.
Ah.
That is spirituality for me. And the key is like, people think they're going to go on a spiritual journey and it's just going to be beautiful bliss, but it's actually
no. To be honest, I've had the most depressing times of my life over the past 4 years, mate. Like really low times. Like everyone thinks on social media that I've been traveling the world, and they always keep saying I'll keep living the dream. I'm like, I've been lonely, isolated, going through some serious heavy shit over here. Like just really disconnected and don't know what I'm doing with my life or who the fuck I am. Like it's really dark times, you know.
Yeah, that's the spiritual journey, bro. It's you playing the weirds time and time again.
Easy. It's not. It's because it's just a blit. Like I'm just trying to pick up the pieces still, you know. I'm just like, what the fuck's going on?
Of course,
I want to talk a bit about your music, Luke, because that's fucking huge, you know. I do, and I want to also know how many instruments you play, because I've seen you play so many fucking instruments, from like the didgeridoo to the what's the drum called?
The hangman.
Yeah, man, that's fucking just so inspirational. Like I've got a ukulele there, and I think it's part of my ego where I was spiritual and I bought a ukulele like everybody else, like everybody else does, you know. But even just my brain doesn't pick up on instruments that well. I don't know whether that's just me telling myself that or that's true, but like
that's you telling yourself, bro.
Yeah, that's me telling myself that.
My first, sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, yeah, I just see you picking up it seems like, or you give the impression of that you can just pick up an instrument and you get in tune with it, or do you have to work at it? Like, yeah, let's talk about your music a little bit.
It's so mad, because I literally obviously I grew up a little Raji Chava from Sunderland, do you know what I mean? Council Estate boy, bit of the beat, you know, this, no, pick up the beat, no, that's my roots in music. Seriously. That's where it all started for me. It was just emceeing on a Friday night, charged to a Lamborghini. Do you know what I mean? Hyping up a load of teenagers. So it started off as that, and I did that obviously for a few years, and then kind of moved into rap. But then I was writing songs, and to be honest, mate, I'll send you somewhere, but don't send them to anybody else. I've made like these old tracks on YouTube when I was about 14, 15. I produced them myself, and like the lyrics that I'm talking about are really good, and like really even like pretty like conscious for a 15-year-old, but I'm doing it all with an American accent.
Oh, really?
You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying, like what I was doing is obviously just trying to again follow the crowd, follow what I thought was cool, and again after the mushrooms, I remember after I took the mushrooms, I started writing the rap, but you've probably heard the poem. It starts off with, my name's Luke and I come from the northeast of England.
Yeah.
And I said that, but I said it in my accent, and I was like, whoa. I was like, that's really unique. Why have I never spoken my accent before? You know, because I'm sure you get it a lot as a Mac. I'm traveling the world. People absolutely love our accent.
I've actually just wrote that down in big writing accent here because you touched on it at the start of the conversation. Honestly, I used to try and hide my accent and try and now it's a strength, man. It's a strength. Everybody loves it, and it's like, but it's so strong. Like, it's funny, Luke. I didn't realize that I had an accent. Okay, like back home. Honestly, the first day in Bangkok when I landed and I was around the table, it was just like, loads of different cultures, like English and like Canadian and American. And I remember sitting down my first day on my own, like nervous as hell, like had a beer. And then the conversation was going and I opened my mouth and I said something and everybody just looked at us and went, "What did you just say?" And I was like,
exactly the same experience.
and I was like, holy fuck, I sound so much different to everybody. And then from there, I mean, it's just been a journey of me trying to get people to understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, the key is just to slow it down.
Yeah, just slow it down. Yeah,
because I mean, I remember again similar, exactly. I had the same things like where I've spoke, especially after a few beers, and people literally stopped and just looked at me like, "What language is that?" And I'm like, "English."
English.
They're like English.
English.
So what was I gonna say?
The accent in the music, how it was a strength.
The accent in the music, yeah. Got kind of back to my accent, and like obviously when I went to Australia, I did this poetry competition, and people in Australia loved my poetry, loved my accent, and that's when they kept saying, like, "You're such a storyteller, you're a bard," and I'm like, "What's a bard?" And I mean, I'm just a rough Northern English, but just anyway, just people liked it. And I remember being in this room one day and I'm smoking drunk with some of my friends who I've met in Australia, and there's a didgeridoo there, and I've never played an instrument in my life. And I've always had this mentality of I can't do music instruments. I don't have the music mind.
That I've got.
And I promise you, bro, I told myself that for 21 years. And they passed me the didgeridoo and said, I would try. And I said, no, I can't do that. And they looked at me and they went, just try. And I'm like, I can't do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm instantly just telling myself I can't do that. Yeah. And like, just try it. So I get the didge and I'm like, and I get a sound the first time. And that one moment for me, it switched something in my brain that instantly went from I can't do this to I can do this. And now I've applied that to every instrument. So after that, I picked up the guitar. At first, I'm trying. I'm like, I can't do this. I'm like, but remember, you can do this. You're going to sound shit at first, but what do you expect? So, I mean, you can't pick up a musical instrument and just like if you've got no experience with musical instruments, you can't pick up a musical experience and expect to know what to do.
Exactly. You've always got to start from the bottom. You've always got to. You've got to have the courage to be shit at something. You've got to have the humility. Yeah, and like a lot of people try and start, and it's the same for me. Like I used to get discouraged because if I start a new thing, I'm so shit at it that it's like, oh well, what's the point? And it's like you got to start from the bottom. And it's funny how like you touched. I want to keep going with your music, but you touched on like. Just we tell ourselves narratives, we tell ourselves stories and we believe them from a young age. And that's part of these past 4 years. It isn't me like learning anything new, which obviously I am learning things new, but it's about unlearning everything. I'm just like catching myself like, why do I believe that? Wait a minute, is that true? That is not true. Like, why have I told myself that for fucking 28 years? That's so strange. And like then like rewiring that story and telling myself this different story. And next thing I know, I'm over that little hump and it's like I'm just on with my life again. And it's crazy how you keep yourself stuck by just all the stories that you tell yourself, but you never question the stories. They're just there, the beliefs are just there. And it's like, like an example there with the music. You're just telling yourself that story, you rewire the story in your brain. Next thing
tell myself a story, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, next thing you know, you're off and look where you are today. So yeah, sorry, keep going with the story there.
What was I touching on? I think
you were saying obviously the didgeridoo, you picked it up and then you hit the note and then you just kept telling yourself the story. And every time you picked up a new instrument, you were like, look, I can play this, I can do this.
I mean that's been the journey really. It started off as Didge for a few months and I picked up the guitar and then I started singing, and that's been a massive journey for me, and that's been like one of the biggest really, because that is sharing my vulnerable side. Because I feel like when I rap or speak poetry, it's my masculine. Do you know what I mean? It's the warrior, it's like let's rise, let's fight. And then when I sing, it's more that little boy that lost his mom again. Do you know what I mean? And like that's what wants to come out in that. Not always, it depends what I'm singing. Do you know what I mean? I love to sing tribal stuff as well and like very masculine. But I think for me, that was one of the hardest parts to start showing people. And obviously coming from Sunderland and having a lot of followers on Instagram from Sunderland or something, that's always being a worry in my head. Is like, will people not see? Because I know that, you know what I mean, whenever you go and live a lifestyle that's different, you're always going to be open to whatever. So it's been a battle of myself of like, shit, do I release this? Do I do it? Like, I know that maybe my traveling friends will like it, but maybe my friends back home won't like it. And it's just been a massive journey of like, actually, look, it doesn't matter. Do you like it?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
I know.
Do you like it? Does it make you feel good? Does it feel
Yeah.
good when you do it? Yeah, then do it. Doesn't matter. And I'm just constantly trying to remind myself that, to not get caught by these things that are programmed into us to be like, I can't do that. People will judge me. I can't do that. And I think I've always been quite fearless like that. When I first was in Sunderland, in the main, like, I just kind of was like, oh, all right, this is who I am now, and I wasn't afraid to just step into it.
Yeah, see that, and that's the thing. So like you still come up with that in your head. You still come up with the fear of judgment. See, I never seen you that as Luke, and that's kind of humbling to me. Because like you still go through that, because I'm trying to overcome that on a daily fucking basis. So every time I'm trying to be authentic, I'm coming up with like, what the fuck is people going to think about this? It's like, you know, that fear of criticism. And I always thought that you didn't have that, because obviously looking for your journey, you just like you went for it and you went down the path. And it's kind of I know this is not, but it's kind of nice to know that you still come up with the.
Oh, me, massively, yeah. I think I deal with it more. I think I deal with it more than I think people have always. Do you know what I mean? Thought like I'm this really confident person, and I think to a degree I am a really confident person, but I also have a lot of insecurities, and do you know what I mean? And like I think losing my mum and being a fat kid for 10 years, that ingrained my first life of insecurities, always trying to like prove myself.
Yeah, well, that's where you learn the stories. That's where you get the stories from. You know, them first like 10 years of your life when you're growing up.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much now, and they still affect me massively. To me, I'm constantly trying to deal with it. I think music again for me. It's just like I don't want to put something out there that somebody's already put out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think it's easy to make music that other people have made and put the sound that we are. Just think for me, I want to try and keep it as authentic as possible. Mm-hmm. And I also love to play instruments from all different cultures to try and just show people the importance of, like, do you know what I mean? How beautiful things can be when they're used together, or how powerful. Yeah, I think it's incredible that all cultures had the same instruments. Do you know what I mean? Their own versions of the instruments, but they had the same instruments. And then obviously I love dance music, and it's my roots. So for me, if I can incorporate the spiritual, like, medicine instruments into also electronic music, for me, that's just best of both worlds.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my journey. And then obviously, I think touching on the subject of like really helping people to come back to and to remember the power and the beauty of our pagan traditions, which was all passed down through music. So before the Romans came, we had a tradition of poetry and songs, and you had the druids and the bards. They would recite, they would learn all of the culture's history and folklore and laws. It was all recorded through song and poetry.
Wow.
That was took away from us. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think with modern music, you can see that song isn't about that anymore. It's very about ego. It's about status. It's just bullshit. And I think, like, I know as a musician putting out what I'm going to put out, it's not going to be easy. Do you know what I mean? And to be honest, my purpose isn't to actually do anything with it. It's more for me. It's like, it's something I feel like I actually came here to do, to help. That's in one of the ways that I can help others who may need it.
But if you look at it, look, that's sometimes the fundamentals for success. And I know that's not your end goal. Like, you know, you're not doing it for that. But like, when you're coming from such an authentic place of creating music because you love it and you just enjoy doing it, often or not, that's the shit that, you know, you do get some form of success from that, because you haven't got that pressure on. You know, there isn't the pressure on to make it, in a sense.
Yeah, I think the day we don't encourage authenticity at all.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
True.
It's very hard to find, like, where do I even start sending my music? Do you know what I mean? Like, in some of my music, I'm talking about, you know, I'm not using light-hearted lyrics, so to speak. So for me, I think it's just been a massive journey. I'm still in this moment processing, like, what am I doing? Where do I want to release it? Do I even want to release it? Do I want to sell it? Do I not want to sell it? Like, because I don't really want to put that on there, because for me, it's something that has literally saved my life.
Yeah. Wow.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like, to be honest, I'm feeling like I'll probably come away from social media soon. I've been seeing this for a long, long time, but I think the current state of the world and what I see happening, and just all of the divide that I see happening, whether it be between the races, between the genders, between the vaccinated, unvaccinated, it's just reaching a point for me where like I can't really handle it anymore, and I just need to step back from it. And I think I've been so caught up in the last few years also as being seen as this spiritual person, or being seen as this person who's connected, and like I have to step back from that as well and be like, actually, I just need to get back to the land and start hiking mountains again and being in the forest and stepping away from that limelight of it all, I think, which is such an interesting place to be at, especially when I'm at the point of finally starting to release music and people asking me to play at festivals and stuff, which is everything I've ever dreamed of. And I'm at the crossroads of my life where I'm like, is this really what I want? So it's been a really interesting journey.
And them are the times that are the hardest, when everything's into question. You know, when you're questioning things, that's them are the struggles. You know, it's when like I feel like the hardest times for me is not when I'm like really feeling low, because when I'm feeling low, like I still feel kind of know what I'm doing. I'm low, but like the times when I'm questioning things, that's the tough times. You know, when you're trying to work out and you're trying to feel into what's the right thing, or who am I, and like what should I go down, and I feel like that's the toughest times when you everything's into question. But well, look, when I fucking listened to that Facebook, like, you know, the little segment that you put out on Facebook, the music, like the little clips, man. Your music's like a journey, you know. It isn't just like one genre. It's like a journey, and you can feel like every different song is like a different part of you and a different part of your story, you know. And like some songs are very, like you said, mellow and you're singing. Some are like kind of you know, like you're rapping, and it just takes you on a journey. And I hope you do release it. I hope you do release this album that you're working on, mate, because I 100% will listen to it. I sometimes do a little bit of breath work, and I like listening to that sort of music that takes you on a journey, where it's some like masculine, like high energy Viking vibe, and then you go down into like the low, like, you know, mellow singing vibe. And like, you know, I even when I listened to that, I was like, oh, I'm going to do like a little breathwork session to this, because it takes us on a journey, you know.
Yeah,
it isn't just
that's kind of what it's about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really feel like I'm here to entertain people. And I think we often see music as entertainment. For me, I see it as less entertainment and more of like, actually just try and remember. Like, I don't know, it's such a massive journey, and sometimes I'm just like, I'm going to stop music and become a boxer again. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, I feel like I've reached a point in my life, like kind of 7-8 years now on a spiritual journey. And I think, you know, they say that every 7 years we kind of go through this massive transition. And I feel like I'm moving into a different stage of my life now. So I'm not sure what's going to come from. I definitely will be putting out music there, because that's what I want to do before I come off social media. And then maybe just using my platforms through the music to share what I want to share, because I personally find that it's through the music that I'm most able to reach people with my message. Because I can be quite fiery, and especially when I'm passionate about subjects, I can get quite fiery, and I just feel like my best way to help people is through the music, or through like talking circles and stuff. But I'm not sure.
But
I'm a little bit confused about it all.
It's all exciting as well, though. Look, you know, like you said, if you're in a transition period and you are trying to figure out what the next step is and what the next evolution of Luke is, then that's also beautiful, you know. It's funny because I question that all the time, you know, like, what am I doing? Like, should I don't know, like, I know this is like, should I be a bodybuilder or something? I really enjoy it, and like, you know, I'll drop back into that mode and then come out of that, and and I feel like, you know, sometimes I'm running away from home or the conventional life, like buying a house or like, quote unquote, I never want to like settle down in essence, but like, you know, like sometimes I'm like, do I want to just bit of comfort in my life? Like, do I want to like stop worrying about money all the time, and like stop like traveling and never feeling familiar in a place? Like, do I want a place just to like live from? Like, I don't know. And then the next day I'm like, nah, fuck that. Then the next day I'm like, like, it's just, you know, trying to figure shit out all the time.
I totally understand that.
But if you think about it, Luke, you know, you've experienced so fucking much already.
Oh, mate, I'm so grateful for the life that I've managed to live in the last 7 years. I mean, I'm just grateful for all my life, everything bad that happened, watching my friend get stabbed. It is like all of those things I'm grateful for. My mom dying, I'm grateful for. As sad as that sounds, like, I wouldn't be who I am now if it wasn't for that.
And it's beautiful when you come to that realization, isn't it? Where like everything's just synchronized and like you're just grateful for everything, even like the dark times. You're like,
Even
all
more
it's made
grateful.
it's all it's made is who I am. It's brought us to this moment, and like when you can really like just have gratitude for everything. It's just a very peaceful feeling. Yeah, fuck, Luke. Honestly, it's just fucking like been amazing speaking to you. Like,
Bro,
really.
thank you so much for
And like, there's just so many more questions I want
easy
to
to
ask
talk
you.
to.
Just so many more questions, man. I just want to get to know you more as well. It's fucking, it's absolutely crazy how much I've enjoyed this conversation. But yeah, there's a few questions. Are you okay? I want to just ask you a few questions, like, you know, off your story, and just like I've got a few questions just like at the end here, just to shoot off. What is one thing you wish more people understood about you? And like, obviously, I know these are pretty off the cuff questions, so just
I wish people would be able to understand my anger.
Your anger?
My anger,
In what sense?
my sense of like why I'm so like outspoken about what I see in the world. Because I think a lot of times people maybe just see anger, but actually, like I said, on the surface, it's actually just coming from a deep place of sadness. Like, and I feel I've never really been seen in that. Do you know what I mean? And I've spent most of my life not having support in that. Yeah, I guess, in sadness. So that's why I've been, in a way, expressing it through first fighting for a long time, and now the last 7 years, no fighting and music.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Honestly, I really appreciate it. Next question is, what has life taught you about yourself up to now? That's a very broad question, but like, just pick one thing if you can think of something. Like, what's life taught you?
That I'm resilient. I think that no matter what happens, no matter how low I get, I still always find that fighting spirit. So, I mean, that's one of the good things it's taught me.
Yeah, I fucking love that, man. I love it.
I think that's my life, since I can remember my life, as literally being an emotional up and down. You know what I mean? I've had the highest highs, lived the wild, lived in the most beautiful places, and I've also lived under park benches, and do you know what I mean? Like, just roughed it out. And I don't know, I just think that I'm just very resilient. The amount of times I've been knocked down creatively, the amount of times I've been unsupported and I've not given yet. And I'm even now to this day, like every morning I wake up with so many doubts, and I sit down, normally I smoke a joint, and I make more music, and I just keep going. And I think also, given the current situation of the world and what's happening and the amount of peer pressure that I'm seeing on many levels, I think I've stayed true to myself through it all, even though I know that I've been probably subjected myself to a lot of criticism from friends and from people that I've met because of my opinions. But I think at the end of the day, I think for me, the ultimate goodness that we can do for this world, it's not about changing the world. I realized that in my last DMT experience, it's like, I'm so powerful, I'm so, you know what I mean, like I'm so connected to the spiritual world, and why can't I stop the suffering? And then it was just like, you can't stop the suffering, all you can do is plant seeds. And like that moment, I was like, all right, Luke, took the weight off my shoulders. I was like, you can't save the world, just plant seeds, just stay true to yourself, and hope that people that say that find the strength in themselves to stay true to themselves, even when the world around you is crumbling and telling you to be something different, telling you to do something you don't want to do. It's so important that you just find that resilience inside and find that spirit to say, actually, I'm good. I know what I need.
Yeah.
I know what I want. And
fuck, man. That is, yeah. Thank you for sharing that one. And what like, honestly, like, they just blow my fucking mind here. Just off the, like, what, so psychedelic wise, have you done ayahuasca, DMT, mushrooms? Yeah. What's if there is one, because I know every experience is totally different, and like, is there one experience that really stands out for you, like one psychedelic experience? I mean, I know that's a tough question.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot.
Yeah.
I haven't had a lot to be honest. I've been actually, and I advocate this strongly to anybody that's wanting to explore psychedelics, to give yourself time to process.
100%.
And
I'm still processing shit off my first shit 4 years ago. Like,
that's
yeah,
what I mean.
I've obviously done it like quite a bit in between, but it's like you don't realize how much
Powerful.
how powerful it is, and how much you don't understand till like years later. Yeah,
So true, and I think as a culture, especially Western culture, coming into it, it's very new for us, so it can shatter our realities, which we need. But, you know, I've also had a lot of experiences on like psychedelics where I genuinely thought I wasn't coming back, and I was terrified.
Yeah.
And like, so I'm like I said, I've always been quite sensitive to stuff. I don't really do psychedelics a lot now. I feel like I learned everything I needed to from them. A lot of my best psychedelic experiences were actually the ones that terrified me the most.
Yeah.
And humbled me, because like I say, from the age of 15, I just was on this high horse of like, I'm indestructible. Do you know what I mean? And I had this no fear mentality, which served me at the time. But then psychedelics were just like, actually, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Here you go. And I'm like this terrified little child in the corner of the room, like, what the fuck is going on? I think for me, the most powerful, I definitely couldn't say there was one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I just think they should be used with respect.
100%.
And I do find that when I do them by myself, that I have the most insightful spiritual revelations, is when I'm by myself and I do them, and especially when I do them in nature by myself.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, there's the risk of you being by yourself, but I think if you tell somebody and let somebody know, like, I'm going into that forest there to do mushrooms, and I'm not back out in 6 hours, like,
come looking for us, yeah.
But I genuinely do believe that to do them by ourselves really encourages that hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
Because essentially we are by ourselves in a way. Do you know what I mean? We're experiencing this reality through our own selves, and I think if you can find the strength to also go through that process by yourself, you can apply that to a lot of things in your life after.
Yeah, I've never actually. Oh well, I did in talent. Yeah, I have never actually done like a high dose by myself, and it's something that I probably might, you know, like you said, I don't rush to take psychedelics. I wait till I feel like I'm called to do it, and that might be 2 years in between, it might be 3 months, it's whatever, like, you know. A lot of times I've turned down, like even here where they do psychedelic therapy here, like in a ceremonial setting where we all come around, we set intentions, and there's like kind of a shaman trip sit there, and you know, we go into the experience and we all just lie and like with our eye masks on, and we have like blankets in the corner, and we all like in this like nice little safe space. But one of my friends here was asking me to do that for, you know, about 6 months, but every time he asked us, I just had that feeling of like, no, it's just not the right time, and I wasn't like, I want to do it. And then one day he asked us, and I was like, I just felt, yeah, that's like, I was excited, I was ready, and like, you know, I feel like you need to feel it. You don't need to rush into it, because if you go into it unprepared, it's going to be a very tough experience. And like some people struggle to come back from them if you don't know how to integrate it. And you don't have the support system around you. You don't have anyone to talk to who actually understands what you're going through. Because that's another thing. I know people who's had these big, powerful experiences on high doses, and then like they have no one to talk to about it. So they're kind of just walking about their life for the next 3 weeks, just not understanding what the fuck's going on and why everything looks different and why they're thinking different, and they're scared, and they end up like just being so fearful, and it can get scary, you know, and it can be powerful.
I think it's the most powerful medicine on the planet, psychedelics. And I think psychedelics are actually the reason we are the way we are, and we're so conscious, because there's just no way, like, we've used them for thousands and thousands of years. It's only in the last 1,000 years that we kind of got demonized. Again, paganism, anybody using plants from the land, it's devil worship or something. It's just being demonized. But at the same time, I think because it's becoming trendy again and popular, unfortunately, you're going to get, and I've saw it a lot of it in Thailand, Southeast Asia, you just get a lot of young travelers going and taking psychedelics all the time, and they're just frying themselves. So it's really, really, really important, I think, like, to do your research, to make sure, you know, like, just to make sure
Sorry, what?
Your setting is so important. It's the most key thing to it.
And making sure you're just emotionally and mentally ready. Some people are just not mentally ready for the reality to be shattered. Like it's just, and then they're just so like you said, it's so hyped up in every, like, you know, modern day society now. And I mean, I guess it's, I want it to be hyped up in a certain degree because it's so powerful and is healing. And I feel like that it's the answer to a lot of people's problems, to get the reality shattered and to be able to see on the what's on the other side, and, like, you know, feel that connectedness and what they're lacking in their life. But on the other end, it's like, yeah, we need to hold some responsibility around it, and it needs to be done.
Oh, mate, mega responsibility.
Yeah, and like I tell everybody, so say if someone's like, "Oh, what was it like?" I say, like, first thing I say is like, you need to have respect. You need to do in the right setting. You need to be ready. Have a trip. Like, just be prepared. Don't just think it's some sort of recreational drug that you can go on to a party with, and, like, you know, you can just see funny colors in trees. It's like it's different. Like, you need to have respect for it, because
I mean, it is that for some people. For me, it was never that. For me, I was just always deep.
Yeah,
I guess, yeah, bringing up the trauma of everything that happened in my life. So I just never understood how people could use it recreationally. And as in lower doses, I think it can be used recreationally. Yeah. Microdosing is really good for that. Lower dose, any psychedelics is obviously really good recreationally. But I think if you really want to use, and you really want to use psychedelics for what they're meant for, I think then obviously you need to take enough so that you kind of break through. Even I'm seeing that, and I'm such a control freak. I hate the feeling of trying to let go.
I mean, I've just made a little solo podcast about that whole thing. Like my last session was about 4 months ago, and even though every time I struggle to let go, every time I cling on for my dear life, and I fight, and it's like, but every time I'm like, before the trip, I'm like, this time I'm going to let go. I'm safe. I'm going to let go. And, like, but as soon as you're in there, your whole self disintegrates, time disintegrates. You don't know what and it's like, you kind of remind yourself of that. So yet again, I find myself clinging onto the side, trying to cling onto a thought. You're not going to get away from me, thought. Like, you know, and then I'm just, next thing I know, I'm in this, like, terrified, just absolute, just obliterated state where I'm just in total fear, like in the fear. I come out again, I'm like, good, like, and I come out again, I'm like, fuck's sake, like, why can't I like, sometimes I let go. But it's funny how, I mean, last session I was in that state, and I went back to my breath. I can remember just, like, thinking about, I can breathe, and I was thinking about the breath, and I actually ended up, like, letting go. And then it's just how it went from total fear and terror,
total bliss,
and I started crying, and I couldn't get the smile off my face, and I was like, in that instant, it's just, there's so much to that. There's so much to just being able to let go and not have any expectation, you know, and just being
not controlling.
No control. There's just something, like, in life, that's a lesson as well, and it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Yeah,
I mean, it just I don't think it should be explained.
No, it shouldn't be. That's what I mean. Yeah, and it's hard to put into words. It is. Next question. Are you afraid of death?
I'm not afraid of death. I'm definitely afraid of illness, though.
Yeah. And do you think your psychedelic experiences have, like, you know, kind of pushed you on not being afraid of death? Or
I think my psychedelic experiences definitely helped. I think staring death in the eyes a few times has also helped. But I think ultimately my connection back to my, like, pagan ancestors, i.e. the Vikings, the Celts, and learning more about their cultures, and about how for me, I've always resonated with the idea of warriors, and being a warrior, being somebody that protects those that can't stand up for themselves, you know what I mean? And that there's you know, like, in our old pagan cultures, to die in battle was actually, was like guaranteed access to what we'd call now heaven, Valhalla. So I think, like, that's kind of how I live my life. It's like, I know that as long as I die fighting for what I believed in, and as long as I know I died being true to myself, and that I'm there. Obviously, I'm afraid to die. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm afraid to die because I'll miss the people that I love. But I'm not afraid to die I'm not afraid to die because I don't think there's anything after.
Yeah.
I'm only afraid to die because I'll lose who I am now, all of the people in my life now, but I know that my spirit essentially will go on to something else. And some part of me looks forward to this, do you know what I mean? There's a part of me that it's for me, like, I think if you've tried DMT, then you kind of know that your brain is going to release that when you die. So you know that no matter what is happening, you're having an experience after.
Yeah.
So that's not just spiritual now, that's science. Science is pretty much proved now, and I think it will continue to be able to explain that, you know what I mean? Why do people who have near-death experiences always talk about coming back from somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think, like I said, the thing that scare me more than death is being ill. But I think that's probably because I watched my mum go through it. And that just freaks me out. The environment that you have to go in, everything about it. And I think just not living my life truly, or I think those actually scare me more.
Scare you more.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And the thing, and it's funny because like death's such a taboo subject in the Western world. You know, it's like, and it's something I big. I know this sounds really weird, but I go through periods where I'm really like connected to death. I want to learn about it. Sometimes I know this sounds really crazy, but like sometimes I like do a like deep meditation in a dark room by myself, and I'll picture myself dying, and like just getting familiar with like that sort of experience, because it's something that we're all going to go through. It's basically the motivation for all of our lives right now, and we just don't talk about it. You know, it's shunned away, it's behind a curtain, and we don't talk about that. And I feel like there's so much power to have in talking about death earlier in your life and being able to try and accept it to a certain degree. So when you do come to the latter stages, or the stages where you are maybe dying, you don't have to deal with a lot of things. You know, you've already kind of accepted it in a certain degree, because I feel like a lot of people shy away from the fact, and then they get to the end stages, and then everything just gets piled on top of them, and then they have to deal with all of that at the end stages of the life. And I feel like the psychedelic experience for me has made me kind of open to death at an earlier stage in my life. So hopefully when I get to the latter stages, or when I'm going to die, it might be instantly, I don't know, but I'm going to have some peace with it, you know. I'm going to have some acceptance to it. Yeah.
And I just do think, I think the moment you accept that you're going to die, and you truly accept it, and you're standing at like, wow, I'm actually going to die.
Yeah.
And I don't know when, but that now enables me to fully live.
Yeah.
Because if you live in this reality of hiding away from death all the time, you're never going to be in a state of like, I'm going to die, I need to live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you like literally like, I'm going to die, fucking hell, yeah, I'm going to die. I need to live now as best as I can, and I need to. And I think accepting death. I think psychedelics is definitely, because you die. You do die.
You definitely die.
You know what I mean? Like,
obviously
somebody wouldn't understand that who hasn't took them. How do you die? You're still alive. Like, yeah, but part of you feel yourself die.
Yeah.
And you realize that. I just think I think death is rebirth. I don't see death. I see death as life.
Yeah.
When my body, when I die, my body's going to be put into the ground. So, you know what I mean? I'm going to become food for thousands of critters and roots, and just transfers on there.
Like turn into a big mushroom. You know what I mean? Like, and I mean that in a literal sense. Like fungi are like your body, and you know.
You decompose.
Yeah. So last question, Luke. What is one thing you want to thank yourself for?
I'm not very good at these ones.
Yeah, these are always the tough ones, you know, the ones where you have to speak highly of yourself or give yourself some credit.
What is one thing I'm thankful for to myself?
You're going to thank yourself for in this life.
For not giving up.
Beautiful.
For not taking the easy option out.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Luke. Honestly, like you just blew me mind, and I'm so fucking honored to have had this conversation. I'm not even saying that.
Thank you so much.
I feel like I've really truly seen you as well, which has been just a beautiful experience, you know.
Likewise, man. Likewise, it's so nice to.
Just hope to have you on back again. I hope to have it, you know, and outside of the podcast, just build a relationship up with you, because there's so much I want to know, so much I want to learn from you and about you. But yeah, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming on and being part of this experience. Okay, brother. Thank you.